Okay, welcome to another War of Rights map overview, and this one's going to be Hatch's Attack. This has got to be one of the most miserable attacking maps in War of Rights. It's one that, just for years, it hasn't felt like the attackers have enough tickets. It's true that they have sharpshooters, and it's on a map where they frequently cannot use them, and they start at the bottom of a hill. So anyways, we're in Union Spawn right now, and we're kind of at the extreme Union right, CSA left of this map. So let's see. Okay, so there's the actual edge. There is a big cornfield. Now look, I think anything that obscures sightlines generally helps the attackers, right? Because they can get big numbers. You can see that there are a couple of rock outcroppings in that corn. Point of contention, for what it's worth, is it's pretty much this area that intersects the corner of the corn and the road. Again, you'll know you're in it because if you hit T and it says defending or capturing. This set of rocks here is really important for that. We're not talking about the point of contention right now. We're just kind of taking an overview. So you come up from those woods, right? This is a South Mountain map. And you can get into this orchard over here. And that's fairly good for obscuring your early moves. But the defenders know that there probably really are only two moves that you're likely to make that they care about. You can push somewhat far into the orchard. I guess that's as far as you go. And you can make a quick, don't plan to stay there long, you can make a quick foray down through here, and you will come back in bounds. But again, you can't hang out around the house. Don't advise it. And then you can push up, and then we kind of get over the hill, and now we're on the extreme right of the map. This is the CSA left, and this road tends to be a decision point, or at least a turning point. Now, if you're the attackers, you've at least, you're pretty sure that you're not going to get counterattacked from those directions. You don't know who's coming through the corn. That also works against the defenders. The defenders, for their part, and I hesitate to do this if you actually don't know this map. If you know this map, you probably don't need this video, but anyways, here you are. So there are great rock formations that you can use as the CSA to get concealment and cover behind, and then if the Union wants to shoot it out, go ahead. Take your hardcover rocks and shoot at them when they're behind the fence. But the CSA can actually stack themselves pretty far back. There are lots of these kind of rock outcroppings, and some enterprising Union folks who know how to move through these woods can really sneak up on you if you lose track of them. So as the CSA, you want to keep the fight in front of you, and you want to make sure that you have eyes on where the Union's flags are. I talked about this in some other maps. This is a map in I guess some ways like Dunker Church. Maybe it's more like Nicodemus Hill, but without the artillery, where it's very lateral, it's very left to right dependent, and attackers should use that to their advantage. In terms of the forward and backwards, it tends not to be too much if the two sides are evenly matched. But as a CSA, you don't want the Union back here. Kind of for the same reason you don't want them in the woods on Dunker. Right? If they get themselves in here with flags and they're respawning, then they're able to kind of hop right up towards point and force you to defend it, or cap early, and then they can sit here and they can shoot you as you come. I know one of the hot takes, or at least the one I've heard on the flag respawn time, is that it helps defenders. But if you ask me, if you got 4 flags around here spawning in attackers, that saves them a very long trip. Attackers everybody always wants their flags with them at all times, but it saves you a long run up from that field. So anyways, that's the right side push, and if as the Union, you're able to embed yourself on that right side, and then you can work off of it either by pushing up through the rocks, or if you stay in the corn and kind of dare the CSA to cross the road and then push up the corn and force the CSA to play a dangerous game of fighting at close range. CSA, I believe, does have access to buck and ball on this map, and so really close range shootouts might not be to your advantage, Union, especially since you have sharpshooters who you know what they do well. But anyways, it's something to keep in mind, right? Where corn conceals you and a fence covers you, if you can force the CSA to come in here with you and make it bloody on both sides, that's not the worst thing, as long as you get your flags out. And sometimes you can get those flags to run back to those rock outcroppings as a place to recover, get your folks spawning back in on flag, and then be able to resume the attack without losing too much time. So that's the right side push. The center push it comes out of those woods and it largely follows this snake fence up here. And the goal is to embed yourself in the corner and then force the CSA to come and shoot you out of it, or melee you out of it and make them pay a price on the way in. That's perfectly viable. And again, when you're moving to cap, this is the closest. You're going to get concealment all the way up to the doorstep of cap. The problem is that that doorstep is actually pretty far away. It's going to feel much further away when you got 100 CSA around here, a bunch of buck and ball and officers who are shooting at you, and it's relatively open. Even though the CSA has cover and concealment from a lot, they can shoot back at you. There are these rock outcroppings back here that they can move up and they can skirmish from, and when they're taking a knee, they're probably just about 100% covered. And so they can make you pay once you come out of that corner, so you need to be aware of that if you are the Union. And then there's a far left push, which also uses the tree line to mask its movement up so far, but the CSA can run up to this hill, the crest of that hill. Nate, they can look down and they'll see what you're doing, but generally it works up this fence, right? The other fence, the one I just talked about, is over there. That's the center push, and then this is the left push. It uses the map boundary, the map edge here, to help in that push, right? Push up to this part, and this is kind of where things can start going badly for the Union. The CSA can be back on this straight fence, and who knows how many are actually there. They have some concealment. It gives them cover. They can also have more, or just everybody back behind the broken stone wall. You may not even see them, and they may rush up on you. Right? The CSA can use those woods there to do a pretty good job of masking where they're going to concentrate from. So my general advice to attackers is to stick together. Don't try to make it too cute. I would say on this one big push, the CSA pretty much knows where you got to go, right? It's pretty much going to be from here, that corner down there, to right about up here. And it's along this road. This part of a center push, sometimes the Union will send its skirmishers out to these set of rocks to shoot in there, and you can use the backside of this hill, right? So South Mountain, so we got boulders everywhere. Right? You can use this to screen the movement for a ways and give you some concealment and cover up to these rocks, and then you can try to pour pot shots in. But the way that the hill kind of bends and there's a broken stone wall, it catches a lot of those shots. And then once you start getting back into the trees and some of the bigger rocks, you're not really hoping to hit much. And as attackers, you don't generally want long-range pillow fight shootouts. You want hot shootouts. But the goal is, if you're pushing up on this left as the Union, hopefully together, or at least with enough, that you're able to embed yourself here on the left. The CSA spawn is actually down there. It's a bit odd, again, if you don't really know the maps. And so you need to be aware that the CSA may be running up on the CSA right on your extreme left, and they can shoot at you from angles it feels like you can't quite get to. And you don't want to be baited too far back into the woods, and the CSA can just continually pull back. And so that's something you want to be aware of. But if you do get to this corner here, and you embed yourself in this one, now you have good shots into the point. You can also just hop the road here. You can now use the concealment and really the cover of that bush to shoot into the backside. These are cap rocks. These are big cap rocks here on Hatch's attack. And so if you can get shots into the defenders in the back of them, that's great. Sometimes you'll shoot, you'll melee. Maybe you'll do a drive-by melee and then try to exit out through the corner or whatever it is. But I generally don't recommend as attackers, if you have to go far, you don't want to lose flags back here, particularly late in the game. And so you want to use as much concealment as you can, build up, make it bloody, get your flags out, rinse and repeat, and hope for the best. It rarely happens, but it does happen that sometimes the defenders will pull back and allow an early cap. Generally, I think that's tough, and sometimes the attackers will actually cap early, and they're trying to do it because they want to draw the CSA out of those woods. And so capping early is a viable strategy, and it's one the defenders need to know that the attackers should consider, if they can, to draw the CSA out. It can be a challenge, once the Union does it, because really the position you hold from, if you're going to hold back here, it's probably that corn, and then maybe you'll try to use cap rocks against the CSA. The problem is if you're holding up in that corner as you should, what the CSA may well do is use the woods over here. They're going to get into the corn behind you, and then they're just going to run up the fence, and they're going to melee you and buck and ball you and probably wipe you if you don't get back. So you do need to be ready for that. I hate defending looking into a corn because it feels like it gives almost all of the advantages to the concentrated attacker. And so I don't think that that's a great strategy for the Union. They'd probably have to pull off further to make some sort of defense here. So this is a very tricky one for attackers. We don't often say that in War of Rights, but this is one that it's a bit of a puzzle to figure out in pub play. Maybe a bit more it's a bit of a puzzle to figure out in organized play. It might be a bit more forgiving in pub play if you have undisciplined CSA folks trying to Rambo through the corn and give up a lot of skirmishing and out of line deaths. That's something that might open the door to the attackers having an easier time on this one. So that's Hatch's attack, another one of our South Mountain maps. I hope it helped a bit, and look forward to bringing you more of these.